Wednesday, April 12th, 2023, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at silver today. Yes, the price action is looking very good for silver and also for the miners. But I want to talk about something even more important. The fact that the 50 plus years that we've had since the mid to late 60s have been an aberration, and why silver is still money and will always be money, in my opinion. Before I start, I'd like to show you Rudy, give you an update on Rudy. Here he is. He's about 17 weeks old. Some of you have asked where Billy was. I guess you haven't been watching the channel regularly, but unfortunately Billy passed away on the 12th of December. He was 14 and a half, and his health deteriorated very quickly. Yes, he had been blind for over a year. Yeah, unfortunately, Billy is no longer with us. Rudy's been with us since the beginning of February. We went for his first puppy training class yesterday. That was quite fun. He did quite well. So hopefully he'll be quiet here during the video. I'm going to put him down on the floor. There we go, Rudy. Good boy. So before we look into silver, I like to look at some quotes. The first one is about inflation, because very few people, even the so-called PhD economists, Nobel Prize-winning economists, don't really, I would argue they don't really know what inflation is. And how come? Well, because they've been brainwashed, because the bankers, the central banks that are in charge, not just of academia, but in charge of governments, in charge of the media, in charge of everything for the last 50 years, they've changed the definition. But if we go back to the early 1900s and listen to one of the most influential bankers of the time, Felix Sommeray, who was known as the Raven of Zurich, this is what he said. The state alone is responsible for inflation. Inflation without government, or indeed against government, is impossible. And why am I bringing this up? Well, because Japan has had inflation in spades, because they're deficit spending, they're printing money through the Bank of Japan. The government is spending massively. And yes, their CPI number might seem low, but if you look at the gold price, the silver price in yen, the yen is collapsing, and that's what inflation is when you debase the currency. The other quote I like to mention is this one here from Norm Franz. And this is what he said. Gold is the money of kings. Silver is the money of gentlemen. Barter is the money of peasants, but debt is the money of slaves. And that's what we have today. We don't have a monetary system. The banking system is all based on debt, and that's why your deposits are not safe and are never going to be safe, really. There's nothing that will change it, because the central bankers, the governments, are going to keep deficit spending, and that's the only thing they know how to do, to create more debt. And before we look at silver, just wanted to show you that it's not going to improve. Yes, we're going to get the CPI today. It's supposed to drop from 6% annual increase to 5%, but I think that will be short-lived, even if they try to manipulate that number going forward. We just need to look at the Congressional Budget Office, right? Non-partisan analysis for the U.S. Congress. This is what they're saying here. And this has everything to do with governments creating inflation. It says the budget, CBO projects a federal budget deficit of 1.4 trillion for 2023. In the agency's projections, deficits generally increase over the coming years. The shortfall in 2023 is 2.7 trillion. The deficit amounts to 5.3% of GDP in 2023, swells to 6.1% of GDP in 2024, 2025, and then declines in the last 2 years that follow. After 2027, deficits increase again, reaching 6.9% of GDP in 2033, a level exceeded only 5 times since 1946. So how do you expect the dollar to survive all this deficit spending? I don't. And by dollar, I mean, of course, the Federal Reserve note, which is a debt instrument. The same thing is happening in the UK. Even the IMF, which usually forecast things, their forecasts are not great. And I would say the CBO's forecast is also not great. It's probably going to be even worse, the deficit spending. IMF is talking about how the UK economy is actually going to shrink by 0.3% in 2023, and it's probably going to be more. And they're talking the same thing about the deficits, that it's only going to come down in 2027-28. So the same thing's happening here. And we see that every time there's a problem in the financial system, like we had in the UK in September, and like we've had in the US with the banks about a month ago, the Fed and the government step in. So this policy of inflation, and that's what we have, is not going to stop. Yes, they might be able to tinker with the CPI, which they will, most definitely. They will ignore some old measures, of course, and they'll try to keep interest rates as low as possible by doing even not QE, right? And the other thing I wanted to show you before we look into silver is this chart of the CRB Index. Yes, I've been fairly bullish on hard assets since around 2019, because at the time I thought the bull market in bonds and the bear market in yields was about to turn, because there's kind of like a 40-year cycle in bonds. And yes, I think the bottom for bond yields was 2021. But as you can see here, commodities started moving higher from April 2020. They have been consolidating. As you can see here, this is a consolidation pattern, a falling wedge. But now we're breaking out of this falling wedge. CRB Index, of course, is a basket of all major commodities, gold and silver included. So this looks very bullish. This is telling me that prices are going to keep rising. Commodities don't cause inflation. Governments creating currency and credit and deficit spending, borrowing, because when governments borrow currency, they create debt. That's the only way they can create the currency. It's going to keep going. This is what it's telling us. So when you hear economists, central bankers saying that wages are causing inflation, they're being dishonest with you. Like doctors on strike now in the UK, junior doctors or anyone on strike, they're not greedy. No, they're not capable of surviving right now on the wages they get. And why is that? Well, because the currency has been destroyed. So if the currency buys 20% less or 30% less than it did 10 years ago, and their wages have gone up only about 5 or even 10%, they're losing out. So that's what it's all about. So now I want to go back to silver. First, we're going to talk a bit about silver as money and how important it has been for thousands of years. I've spoken about the Roman Empire, how it collapsed. Its collapse corresponded to the collapse of the silver content of the denarius, silver coin in Rome, by 476 AD. The denarius had no silver whatsoever. It was all base metals. That's how they used to inflate. And nowadays, we don't even do that anymore. Well, I guess we inflated the silver coins. And what does inflate the silver coins mean? Well, it means that you keep the same face value, but you take out the money from it, the silver, and you put base metals in it. The money supply has been inflated because you've got the same nominal amount of dollars, but less silver. And that's why prices go up, because people realize, well, this coin has been debased. People are not stupid. But what we've seen in the last 50 years plus is that they've taken silver out of circulation and they've given you paper or electronic deposits. And that way they're able to inflate even more. And this is what we're getting here, the collapse of this system. And I see silver and gold, of course, coming back big time. Some of you might say, what are you talking about? Cryptocurrencies are going to be the future. I'm not so sure. Why would so many of us be involved in silver if it wasn't going to come back? And like I said, it's been an aberration the last 50 years plus. So now I'm going to show you how silver has really been money everywhere. It's the money of every nation. So I'm going to start with the oldest coin I've got, which is from ancient Greece. So it's about 2,300 years old. And it's an Alexander the Great tetradrachma. I think it's about 17 grams of silver. So there you go. He didn't use paper, Alexander the Great. So there are several ways to buy silver. You can buy bullion silver, which is a Britannia, like a 1 ounce, or a Krugerrand, 1 ounce Krugerrand, or an American 1 ounce Eagle. They call it also a silver dollar these days, even though silver dollar is like 0.72 technically, but we won't go into that. So these are all bullion coins. You can also buy silver bars. I've got a 50 troy ounce Engelhard bar here, as you can see, silver bar. There are 1 kilo bars. There's smaller bars. I have other bars as well, but I just wanted to show you the main ones. And the most important thing for me, which I've done aside from buying bullion coins, is buying the old coins that people, our great-grandparents or even grandparents or even parents used to use prior to the late to mid 60s. So I've got here a 5 franc Swiss coin. I think that's 0.835. That's from 1954. The Swiss used silver coins until 1967. I've got one of my favorites is the Canadian dollar, 1965. I've even got a South African 5 shilling coin from 1948. There you go. So we've got Edward the Sixth. What else have we got? Oh, I've got a Japanese silver. It's not really a coin, but that's what the Japanese used to use, like a little bar. Even Papua New Guinea, a Papua New Guinea shilling. So there you go. This is from 1945. It's even got a little hole, like the Chinese coins. We've got an Australian florin, which is a double 2 shillings from 1943. We've got United States half dollar from 1963. There you go. And there's, I think it's Franklin here. What else have we got? Got a one Dutch guilder, and this is from, what year is this? 1958. There you go, Dutch guilder. Well, even the countries in Africa, they had their silver coinage. This is Republic of Liberia, $1, 1962. There you go. And we've got 1958, 10 shillings. 10 shillings from Ghana. That's a beautiful coin. 10 shillings. What else have we got? We got 1 rupee, Indian rupee from 1890. There you go. We've got 5 Belgian francs from 1873, and that was sent by one of you guys. Thank you for that. You know who you are. And almost finished here. This is a really nice one. I just bought this recently. It's an 1821 5 franc silver coin from France. It's Louis the 18th. There you go. It's the same weight and size as the Belgian 5 franc. There's a Louis the 18th, and we've got a half crown from the UK. That's 1918. And to finish off, I'll just show you a Brazilian 1,000 reais silver coin from the 1800s. So Brazil, I think by the 1930s, the silver had gone. I think the UK by 1947, the silver had gone. So a lot of the countries that have had more inflation, as you can see, they went off silver way before. Like let's say the US, back in 64 was the last year. Switzerland was 67. Some of the other countries in Europe were even in the 70s, I think, like Germany. So that's what I wanted to show you. Silver's money, and has always been, and I think it will make a comeback. Before we look at the markets, just wanted to show you why I think, yeah, silver's still very cheap, but it looks like it's about to take off. So I've got charts of silver here in dollars, as you can see. That looks very good. That's another one of these consolidation patterns. It's been going on for a couple of years, but it's a long-term chart, and that's why patience is required, in my opinion. And why do I have the patience to hold on to silver? Well, I've been stacking silver since 03. It's a long-term thing, in my opinion. It's like savings. So unless I need to get rid of it because I have an emergency, and I have done that in the past, I won't get rid of it. And I think silver is one of the most undervalued assets out there relative to other assets. So this looks like it's taking off. This is like a flag here as well. Where could we go in the medium term? By medium term, I mean the next few months. Well, we could easily go up to 40 or so. I think some people have even bigger price objectives higher. But I'm going to stick to just stacking, and I think it's given us time to stack. And as I said, the inflation situation is not going to get better. You saw how the deficit spending is not going to get better. So let's look at the gold to silver ratio, which is basically the price of silver in the price of gold, in silver, how many silver ounces you need. And this is very important because usually in a precious metals bull market, you need to see this ratio drop. And 80 has been a very important level for this ratio, as you can see in the last 15 years or so. And we've just dropped below 80. I think we need to drop below 75 to confirm that silver is going to outperform. And as I said, it usually does in the bull market for precious metals. So here I just have some other charts. This is silver in Chinese yuan. It looks very similar to the dollar chart. It's taking off from that flag. We've got silver in Japanese yen, which is actually taking off. It's making like a 12, 13-year high, very close to the all-time high, the price of silver in yen. And that's the country that's supposed to have low inflation, right? Let's look at silver in British pounds. Same setup. Looks like it's taking off. Silver in Aussie dollars. Yeah, same setup. So this is encouraging because this shows that silver is not just moving as a basic commodity, but it's also moving as money, in my opinion. This is against the Canadian dollar as well here. And last but not least, the Kiwi dollar, New Zealand dollar. So there we go. And with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 8:30 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold at 2013. It's up just under $10. High's been 2021. Yeah, spot silver is up 20 cents at 25.24. High has been 25.43. And the low's been 25.01. To the stock market indices, the Dow future is up 46 points. NASDAQ is down 26. S&P is unchanged. To the fiat currencies or Forex market, we've got sterling 124.18. That's unchanged. The euro's unchanged. The dollar's unchanged versus the yen. So a lot of unchanged here. Even the yuan is unchanged. And I'm going to check the ruble today because I haven't been checking it lately. And one of you asked me to check the ruble. Yeah, the dollar is pretty strong. It's at 82. I remember we were stuck around 60 a few months ago. Why do I think the ruble is dropping here? Well, I think it's a way of the Russians financing a little bit of their government spending. And why? Well, because they've had all the sanctions, all the price caps on what they export, especially oil. So what they've done is they've made the ruble weaker. I think it's a policy of inflation. It's not good. That's why I keep saying gold and silver are money, really, not the ruble. But yeah, it allows the Russian government to spend more because they're getting more for their foreign currency that they earn. The people who suffer, of course, are the Russians because they're going to be paying more in terms of prices. To the other currencies here, Aussie dollar is unchanged as well. The dollar versus the Canadian dollar is unchanged. Maybe the markets are waiting for this CPI number, but very quiet. Let's see the other commodities here. We've got platinum up $6, trading around 1,010. We've got WTI crude up 0.2 at 81.64, and Brent crude up 0.25% at 85.61. What about copper? Copper is trading at 401, is down 0.33%. High grade copper, that is. We'll finish off with the bond markets. The 10-year yield is at 3.43. It's unchanged. The 2-year is at 4.05. With that, I'm gonna wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.